Hi guys, welcome back to another chapter day series. I hope you guys are doing fine and staying alright. Anyways, today we're reading First Kings chapter 8, and previously in First Kings we talked about Solomon's house and God's house and how he's just building a house for himself and building a house for God at the same time. So today we're reading First Kings chapter 8, and it is a very long chapter. It is 66 verses, but it talks about Solomon's house of God, which he built for God, and people were just celebrating that finally there is a house of God in Israel, because that was something David wanted to do, because the previous prophets before him were too focused on, doing things that the Israelites wanted versus doing what God wanted. And yeah, everyone's just celebrating that finally they have a house of God, in Israel. And sincerely, I just feel like, okay, God is omnipresent, but if you have something that, signifies his presence or his spirit to you, you can keep it, be it a mantle, be it, an altar you go to God to pray to, or just something that to you signifies God's presence in your life. But God is omnipresent, he's everywhere. He's not confided in, four walls of a church or a house or an altar or an mantle. He's everywhere. But if you have something that just signifies God's presence to you, it's also good. Okay, so I don't have a memory verse for this chapter, but there's something I came across a few days ago where I was watching a conversation between four Satanists and four Christians, and they brought up a point saying that in Genesis, when they talked about God and Adam and Eve, someone said that we only know the story from God's perspective, that we don't know the story from the devil's perspective. But we do know the story from the devil's perspective. So when God, had Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, they weren't knowledgeable, they weren't clothed, they were just living life. But even as they were not clothed or knowledgeable, they were still living life, they were still enjoying life. Everything was just perfect in a sense. And the person said that in the sense God was keeping that knowledge from us because he didn't want us to be at his same level, and the devil comes in to give us that knowledge because he cares for us and he wanted us to gain knowledge and just be better. And if you look at it, before the devil gave Eve the apple, Adam and Eve, even when they were not clothed, even when they knew nothing, even when they were not knowledgeable, they were still living life. They were just happy. Everything was perfect. They could communicate and live with animals. But when they got this knowledge, it seemed like everything turned good, but no, everything went bad. Although, okay, the knowledge made them to understand that they needed clothes and whatnot. The knowledge also gave them exposure that caused bad things. The knowledge gave them exposure to, Abel and Cain, you killing your brother because of jealousy. The knowledge brought up exposure about incest. The knowledge brought up exposure about lust, idolism, killing, all this stuff. Look at it. It didn't just bring knowledge as, oh, we're aware of things around us. It brought sin. That whole situation where the devil gave Eve the apple was the birth of sin. Okay, although it was good that they got exposure, it was good that they knew what was happening and they were aware of things they were doing, but it brought out the negative side of the world. Because before that situation where the devil gave Eve the apple, everything was perfect. There was nothing like sin. God didn't want us to put ourselves in that situation where we'll be sinful, where we'll sin against ourselves, sin against Him. He just wanted us to live life as life is. They're living life as we're supposed to live, meaning in the moment and just being appreciative of things that we have. That's what we're supposed to do. But the devil comes in and gives them this so-called knowledge that's supposed to help them positively, but in the end it causes a whole generational lineage of sin. Because when they had that knowledge, there was birth was born, there was Abel and Cain, there brought out incest from Lot, there was lost, there was idolism, tribalism. There were so many things that were just coming up from just this one apple of knowledge that the devil gave Eve. So in a sense, when you say, okay, the story only comes from God's perspective, the whole story is showing the devil's perspective. The devil's perspective was just like, okay, I'm going to, give this people the apple so that there will be a birth of sin. It's continual, it's generational, it's been going on since Adam and Eve, and now we get to rip what they did. So it's continual. The whole book of Genesis, to me, I feel it's an equal representation of, oh, this is God's perspective, and this was how the devil's perspective was. His perspective is something that we're still going through, which is sin. When you got that knowledge, it gave you exposure to the good and the bad things. And now the devil uses that opportunity to tempt you to go towards the bad things versus going towards the good things. So Genesis is a lovely expression of, oh, this is how God wanted things to be. The devil came into the picture. This is what he wanted. So I don't think it's only, just portraying God's perspective. It's portraying the devil's perspective. His motive was never, oh, let me get this people, let me do something positive for them, let me help them. His perspective was, okay, I know this knowledge will give them good things, but also bad things at the same time. And I'll come along to come and use, temptation as a form to drag them to the bad things. So that's how I look at it. But anyways, that's just what I wanted to clear off, because some people might get confused by that and be like, oh, that's actually true. The Bible only talks about, God's perspective on the whole thing. But no, it talks about the devil's perspective. The devil comes into picture in the Bible. I feel like more people should talk about this. But for example, Job, God actually told the devil to go tempt Job, but he said, do not kill him. The devil tempted Jesus. The devil literally tempts all these prophets in the Bible, but it's not every time that his name comes into place like, oh, God said the devil should go tempt. No. The devil tempted David, the devil tempted Samuel, the devil tempted Saul. He comes into those pictures, but he's not definitely named out. It's only in two situations in the Bible, to me, where it's Job and Jesus that the devil's name comes to play. So yeah, that's basically it. And I hope you guys stay safe, and please accept God as your personal Lord and Savior. Never let the things that you hear have a positive, or rather a negative effect on your relationship with God, because I'm just thinking about how many Christians might have heard that and been like, oh, it is true. We didn't hear the devil's perspective, and be like, oh, there's two sides to a story. So what if God was wrong, which he cannot be, and what if the devil was right? The devil was wrong all along. He had negative intentions. He knew that giving us knowledge will expose us to good things and bad things, and he'll come right in there to use temptation to drag us to the bad things. So that's all for today, and please accept God as your personal Lord and Savior. See you in the next chapter. Bye.